Check, 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 check. Hello, hello, hello. Right, those of us who are interested in a film session that started next door, Ballroom 3, Gate Crashers, is about outsiders who make it into the industry. I request the audience members in front of the stage to continue their interaction in the speaker's lounge. This is the most difficult job of an MC, to make the next session go on time. Yep. I request the media to continue the interaction with the panelists outside for the benefit of the next session. I once again request all the audience members to conduct an interaction with the panelists outside for the benefit of the next medium. All right, our next session, second phase of TV digitization. I'm going to invite the panel and the moderator first. Can I have Mr. Vivek Kuto on stage? Vivek Kuto, can we have you on stage, please, sir? Mr. Vivek Kuto, ladies and gentlemen, the moderator for the next session. Let me introduce the panel. Mr. N. Parmeshwaran, Principal Advisor, TRAI. Samir Manchanda, Chairman and Managing Director, DEN. Sunil Lulla, MD and CEO, Times Television Network. Manjeet Singh, CEO, Multi-Screen Media. Raman Kalra, Partner and Industry Leader, IBM Global Business Services. Tarun Katyal, CEO, Reliance Broadcast. Anuj Gandhi, Group CEO, IndiaCast. I'll once again request the members in front of the stage to continue the interaction outside the ballroom, so into the media. It's a very politically incorrect request I'm making, but yet I have to make it for the benefit of the next session. Well, that was a quick branding change, Anita. Thank you. Are we done with that?
Almost. Yeah.
Almost done. Things we are capable of. Right, we have a very power-packed panel, as you can see, ladies and gentlemen. And I'll now offer the mantle to the moderator, Vivek Kuto, Executive Director and Co-founder, Media Partners Asia, to take this further, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, big hand for our panel.
Thanks very much. I'm not sure if you all heard the introduction, but a very great opportunity to hear about the next stage of digitalization of the 80 million homes in the Indian market. And we have with us today Mr. Parameswaran from TRAI. Welcome to our right, Anuj Gandhi, the head of IndiaCast, Raman Kalra, the head of IBM for India, Manjeet Singh, head of Multi-Screen Media, or Sony Pictures in India, Tarun Katyal, who heads up Reliance Broadcasting, Samir Manchanda, the chairman and founder of DEN, the largest MSO in India, and last but not least, Sunil Lulla from Times Television and Times Group. So I think we should start off with TRAI, Mr. Parameswaran, and basically start off with you just to focus on, you know, this panel is clearly looking at what are the lessons from phase 1 and how are we looking at phase 2. But let's short circuit that a little bit, and we're obviously close to 100% penetration in Delhi and Mumbai as of phase 1, but we've had a few glitches in Calcutta, and we've had zero movement in Chennai. So I would like you to address that first part on how that's going to be sorted out, and also just give us a little bit of a status update on phase 2.
Good afternoon, everybody. So this you want to start with the villain first, as made out in the last session. Well, I think virtually in every session since morning I have been hearing about the digitization. Well, it's good that it has happened and it is in place, and all the stakeholders are responsible for that. Now, on the first phase, well, as far as the seeding of the boxes are concerned, well, it has happened. But then there are issues in there. The real benefits of the digitization has not reached the people. Especially what has happened is that the subscriber management systems are not in place, which means that, well, the boxes are there, people are all getting digital signals. But that percentage, we are working on that, we are working with the stakeholders, and I was very glad to hear repeatedly the industry coming forward and saying that that is where, as brought out in the legal report also, the commitment and coming together of the industry, all the stakeholders, will only solve this problem. Because all the stakeholders, whether it's the broadcaster, the MSOs, we know that at the distribution side, there is a complete change of the business model at the, LCO side. It's not going to happen overnight. But today when we talk of phase 2, that's what been asked. What is the lessons that you are learning from phase 1? Because even though digitization has happened at this thing, it has not happened 100% in the manner we would like it to have. Still, of course, I am not saying that it is not it's not happen or anything. It is, but these are the things that we'll have to come together and then ensure that from day one, all the systems are working in the way they should.
What is TRI doing to accelerate that?
Well, it's a multi-prong approach. On one side, whether it's the multi-system operators or the local cable operators, they are in breach of our regulations. So, they have been sent the notices to put the things in place. They have been sent letters to put the things in place. And why I am telling they should come together. And from other side, the broadcasters are writing to us, sorry, we are not getting the money from the distributors. So how are we, now we are asking them to sign the agreements for the next phases. They are saying, how do we sign that? It's not coming through. This is not really a regulatory issue. This is that the industry has to come together. That's why I said the industry has to come together and ensure that it is in place.
Okay, thank you. That's a good way to start, Mr. Parameswaran. And just following on for that, Samir, and maybe we can get Raman to also comment on this, about what we call the hygiene part of the ecosystem. So Samir, obviously 8 million boxes gross have been installed in these 2 phases and more counting. When do we see collections start accelerating, billing start accelerating, and how's that going to affect churn?
Vivek, I think you're in a lucky position of asking these questions. I want to throw a question back at you. You have, I've read your reports and you've studied everything on digitalization happening all over the world. Correct? If you look back and if you say, come 30 years to October, did you ever think Indian digitalization will happen?
Correct. I think the industry's come together well to drive that, and we're still in transition. And it's a time of churn. People are trying to raise money, people are trying to deploy boxes, and people are trying to collect billing. So it's all happening at the same time. But what I'm asking you, to turn back to you, is basically how are you transitioning with Den, in a leadership position in the industry? How are you transitioning to a billing ecosystem, to getting the collections that you need for also, you're a publicly listed company, to satisfy your shareholders and to get it back to the broadcaster who can invest in more content? So where is that process going for this year?
Okay, let's look at it and saying that I think as Mr. Parameswaran has said, that this was a big change. Everywhere where you look at digitalization, it's taken a number of years. So if you look at the first step, and I say it, it's that at least you said the digitalization has happened. What lagged it is, we call it addressability, which is the customers really getting a package detail forms, coming in back from the LCO, billing taking place, and then flowing back. I think why could this, it's taken time, and it's taken, I think, naturally maybe a few months longer than what you expected, is also the fact that, as you're saying, 8 million boxes put in the last 2-3 months is a very Herculean task if you really look at it. And that's what happened. So you put in so many boxes. Then you had, there were a number of, MSOs or cable operators, if you look at it, who were in operation. So some of them had the systems right, some of them haven't. So, we've been giving digital for the last 4-5 years. Our systems, were perfect. So we are full addressable going up to, well, that's fine. But the question is the full industry in this has to do it, because if the whole industry doesn't, then you can't have a pocket which is unaddressable and full of, that's what like CAS earlier happened. If you look at CAS, the case was that you only got free to air in analog, you only had pay channels on the box. Now that can't happen. So you had the full of Delhi had to be shut off. So I think by far in the month of February, everybody has got their act together and has put their addressable systems in. So I would say naturally the addressability is in. Looking at the point of industry getting together, I think you've got Manjeet here, the president of IBF, you've got Anuj, and you've got all these broadcasters here. I'm the only MSO really here. But I think all of us have got together and made sure that the learnings and the good practices are followed. So in fact, today, I can say is whether IBF and the MSO have all got together to follow good practices and make sure we are also aided by TRI notices to everybody, to an LCO and everybody else. In fact, as of 2 days back, you should know that we are running every MSO, every 8 million boxes is actually running a scroll telling the home, saying that you got to fill in your package forms and know your customer details with either on our site or to the LCO, and made sure it is here by 31st of March. 1st of April, so I feel that, it's a transition phase. Give it 60 days, I think it'll fall in place. We all are together, and I think the industry has put in a lot of time, effort, and the government, frankly, have done it. It's been a good job. So I would say that in 60 days, we should probably be, there.
Okay, and coming back to Manjeet and Anuj, just following on from where Samir is at, you've already seen these boxes installed. In terms of the next stage and coming together as an industry, maybe to finish off phase 1, make sure phase 2 doesn't get too delayed, but also focusing on the collections and the tiering of these services, the packaging of these services, which hasn't really happened in earnest. How much are you both focused on that?
I think the first is a scary thought that I have, Vivek, is that if phase 1, which was more organized, big cities, and like Samir said, give or take another 60 days. You're talking at 7 months since phase 1 started. We required 7 months to get the ball right in phase 1. We are now getting into phase 2. There are 38 cities. It is scary to think that if I have to give 7 months or more, given the length and breadth of this country that 38 cities are. So it's a bit scary for broadcasters. We give our content away, and the way things are today, a customer who was getting 60 channels or 70 channels is now getting about 300 channels, digital quality, no tiering, is probably paying less or more money or the same money that he was for the last. There is no, so it is a bit scary. But we are hopeful that in the next 60 days, and like Samir said, we are working together as an industry, and we'll do whatever we can do as broadcasters to do it. But let's face it, at the end of the day, we are not at the last mile. We are not people who are going to go into the last mile and do the work of an MSO or an LCO. So the focus will remain on an MSO and an LCO. We can only ensure that we do the deals for phase 2. We can only ensure that we are there to support when they need us. But the focus will remain on them.
Just before we go to Manjeet, coming back on that, obviously there is a logistical issue and things might get delayed. But beyond that, what do you say are the prospects for the second part, of developing the ecosystem in terms of tiering and giving more channels to the consumer and a higher consumer proposition?
I think we're far away from it. Let's take one step at a time. We've taken 7 months to, we are hoping that we will get the form, so we will know where the boxes are placed. We don't know that yet. Second step, like Samir said, they've just put the scroll on. There will be some kind of packaging that will be rolled out. Hence, there will be some growth of ARPU. People will start paying what they're supposed to be paying for. If all that goes through, we are looking at least, next time in Fiki Frames, we'll have a debate on whether we can do a value add, get more niche channels, get the ARPU. I think we need to take one step at a time. We have a lot of housekeeping to do before we go there.
No, I agree with what you're saying, but I think that what we've shown in phase one as an industry is when we, the government, and by industry I mean not only broadcasters, but MSOs, LCOs, AAAFI, ISA, TAM, all of us came together to get this done. And when we put our mind to it, it does get done. And that really is the spirit with which we're going into phase two. Now, I think some of the learnings from phase one were also clear that the government has a critical role to play in facilitating all the players coming together, and they did an extremely good job. The Ministry of Information and Broadcasting and TRAI have been instrumental in bringing us all together, and that's been very, very valuable. And that role needs to continue. But also, I think we learned in phase one that the fact that the MSOs weren't really ready with things like the forms to get data collected from the customers, really had not thought through tiering and things like that, resulted in the boxes being put out there, digital signals being provided, but little else changing. Now we, to facilitate the MSOs who have made this big investment as broadcasters, were quite willing to continue to sign up what we call lump sum deals rather than per subscriber deals, so that we could support the economics of this investment in the boxes. But eventually that model has to switch back, and it has to be the consumer who will bear some of these costs, and there will be tiering implemented similar to the tiering that is available on DTH.
Raman, two questions to you. Obviously, Samir talked about billing, and Parameswaran has also mentioned that. So, let's talk about the hygiene aspect, how you see that ecosystem developing, similar to what's happened at DTH. And the second part is the consumer roadmap. If you take a devil's advocate position, you could say the television product, certainly on DTH, cable is shifting, has remained unchanged for the last 2 years in India. How do you see that developing? The consumer where he is today, and how MSOs particularly need to get connected into that B2C ecosystem.
Yeah, I think I'll quote one of the statements from our recent study that we did globally, that included India as well, where we made two striking statements. One was that we are living in a connected consumer era, and this era, in a way, is the end of the digital era. And to be sitting on a panel on digitization and say that it's the end of the digital era, by that I mean to say that it is not just being good enough today to just go digital, and I must commend Samir from DEN and all the others in the industry ecosystem for the amazing amount of investments that have gone into it, so which is the of course necessary part of it. What becomes more important today is, having made those investments, when we go down 24 months down the line, 18 months down the line, when we look back, where does that incremental ARPU, as Anuj, you talked about, comes from? Consumer today consumer might be very happy to pay 200 rupees or 180 rupees or 250 rupees for the bouquet of channels, but for that incremental money that they spend, they got plenty of options. The over-the-top kicking in, the multitude of options that reach out to the consumer to take away that incremental money that they want to spend are enormous. So therefore it becomes very important for the industry to keep that parameter on a parallel set of strategy. It can't be the sequential strategy. You got to take care of the hygiene, and by hygiene I mean to say the physical part of going digital, the systems part of going digital, like the subscriber management system, knowing your customer, the CAF forms and billing, collecting money. At the same time, the strategy has to be there for the ever-changing revenue model uncertainties, the value chain shifts. So I think that as a one point is very critical to keep in mind for the industry players. Second thing which came out and we have all talked about it, and I've heard Anuj speaking about it multiple times, and everybody agrees to that. Consumer out there is willing to pay happily lot more money. You know, it is up to us, it is up to the industry to figure out that how do you extract that money from them. So the key in that space is to know your customer, and knowing your customer is much more than the details that we capture through the CAF form or the details that we capture through multiple other options. If you have a universe of 8 million subscribers, consumers, or 5 million consumers, which of those 5 million, which are those 200,000 who are happy to pay 500 rupees a month for a particular type of lifestyle channel? Which are those 500,000 customers who can pay maybe 1,000 rupees a month for IIT coaching classes on channels? So I think that micro segmentation, fragmentation of consumers, and then drawing your content strategy based on that, and then enabling the systems through systems is key to make sure that we stay in the winning game.
Thank you, Raman. And that brings us to a good juncture, because let's focus on ARPU. And as Manjeet said, as content costs start kicking in and as tiering starts getting established and you taking the effects of churn, you're going to have to go to more than a 200 rupee proposition eventually in the next 3 to 5 years. So maybe Sunil and Tarun, you can address that. Tarun, you've brought in some new channels into the marketplace. How do you see the new digital ecosystem accommodating some of those channels? Are you still investing a lot in carriage and placement fees, or do you see those coming down? And do you see affiliate fees becoming a strong revenue source for you going forward?
So I think the 2 or 3 things that happened with DAS happening, and I think that's key to consumers as well as to broadcasters. In the bad old days, or in the good old days, whatever you would call them, a new entrant would have to fight both for carriage as well as for placement. So you get carried now far more easily, and because you're tiered and you're placed well, and you're not in down some UHF band or something like that, you're clearly available in digital quality to a consumer. What the early rating data shows is that clearly the consumer is starting to sample far more than what he was doing till now. What we are seeing is that he's making choices fragmented over far more many channels than he was doing till now, primarily because they're available at much better quality, and they're available to him in large numbers. And a new entrant like us has actually been able to even out the huge barriers that you would have to entry, both in terms of getting carried as well as getting placed well. We're also seeing that as you sharpen your positioning and as you up your content and marketing game, you're going to get lapped up far more easily. We did something very unique in the last 4 weeks to one of our channels. So we have an English entertainment channel with the CBS joint venture called Prime. And we actually rejigged their entire schedule and decided to take it dual language. And it's really the first English entertainment channel going dual language in India. And we realized that as both carriage, placement, tiering comes into play, people will be able to access content like this, which is world-class and better quality than what they've seen on even Hindi or local content in various forms and languages. And that is actually giving us a huge upside, both in terms of just consumer offtake and in terms of advertiser return. What will also happen, I think, with DAS Phase 2 is that poor GDP to ADX ratio that India has will start to get corrected. So India is probably one of the worst countries, even in the underdeveloped or developing nations, on the ADX to GDP ratio, right? And even though places like Bombay, Delhi even out quite well, if you actually look at overall Indian averages, they are far lesser than what they should be. As consumers consume far more many channels, they're better available to them, they're better tiered, they're digitally delivered to them. Advertisers will have to spend far more than the current dollars they're spending to reach the same amount of audiences. And TV advertising will have to grow to a point where they will have to spend over many more channels to actually cum up the kind of audiences that they were doing before. And the classic marketing to sales spend that we have in India, which is again very poor, will have to get corrected. So, there are exciting times for new entrants as well as for current broadcasters, and there are going to be many dynamics that will change the play when DAS rolls out in many cities.
Thank you. So Neil, just coming back, touching on those themes and the ARPU.
Yeah, I'll come to the ARPU because I think the question is, what is the economics of this business? And today we have to accept that the current economics do not fund the TV ecosystem. The money we collect from the money a consumer pays, which passes on from a cable operator to a multi-system operator or to a DTH player, to a broadcaster, to the government, is not adequate to run the economics. Therefore, terms like carriage come in. Therefore, people believe they earn less or earn nothing, right? Peanuts, in which those beliefs are correct. I'm actually a bit surprised that we expected a lollipop. You know, we are going through an industry transformation where the consumer experience, first of all, has to change. I think the first 2 lines of that tariff order was about better picture, better quality, better sound, more choices, right? That's the basic part of the consumer proposition has not been delivered over the last 20 years. And we are now starting to deliver that. We've seen 2 cities move in the transitionary process really fast and really well. I think Manjeet spoke about it. He spoke about how the entire ecosystem worked together. And that shows the maturity of the industry. We are now sitting at the cusp and many more cities will go through. If tomorrow morning we say this is not 200 bucks anymore, it's 1,000 rupees, you're going to have a social revolt. Because what we do as a business keeps many people at home instead of the streets. We provide information, entertainment, knowledge, and many other such things. I would love the cable price to be 1,000 rupees a month. But I think that's unrealistic. That's again like taking the lollipop out of the jar and say, this is what I want. So this has to be ratcheted. And this can only work when the consumer, the LCO, the MSO, the DTH operator, the broadcaster, the regulator, the government work together. And I think we've actually set out a fantastic example of how this has to work. Maybe all our expectations are not met. Maybe our patience is a bit short. So I think, you know, at the end of the day, will the ARPU go up? Will the price go up? It will go up over a period of time. Will consumers choose to pay 1,000 rupees to see something? They may. And guess what? They may not want the 800 channels out there. They may not even want the 15 channels they actually watch. They may want 3. And somebody in this room and all of us has to be prepared for the rejection that happens. Because some business models will be thrown out when certain channels don't have space in consumers' minds and hearts. So the biggest learning, I think, for broadcast organizations, since I represent one and I've worked for one for some time, is do we really fundamentally understand if we can satisfy our consumers? If we do, then I believe we will work very hard at making sure we get economic value. Today, I don't think that the answer is we fully do. In the earlier session, there was a conversation where a B2C business, but our economics is B2B. And that's, to some extent, flawed with this model. But we can't throw it out, right? So the only way to take the pricing up, to close the economic gap, is to have confidence and let's work steps that we are public about. Let's agree to dates, agree to timelines, provide the patience for slip-ups. Let's not believe, you know, you put a coin and you get a can of aerated water out over there. And let's agree to that and let's be public about what we do. Once we do that, then I just think this business will rock.
So maybe just coming on back from Sunil's comments, let's address the ARPU issue. I mean, Raman gave the 5,000, 6,000 rupee example, but we're mainly talking about 200 to 300 to 400, 500. But where is your focus as an organization over the next 3 years? Is it more on digitizing your entire footprint, which is about 10, 11 million homes? Or is it also about growing value in your existing base? Well, how do you prioritize that?
Listen, I think this is going to be a gradual process. Let's accept the fact that the prices are not going to change overnight. And I think we are, as Sunil said, I completely agree with him that, you know, we're missing it. It's a